As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. And what's up, Obscurians? Welcome to another episode of Obscurity Now, the show where we take a look at weird and almost forgotten pieces of media, and then we decide if they should be remembered for all of human history or tossed into the black void of obscurity, never to be heard from again. My name is Steve. I'm one of the hosts, and with me, he's known as the Dungeon Master of the Castle in Tampa, Florida. It's...
It is Yahel. That is a niche joke for those not in Florida and those that don't know of the castle.
Well, we've talked about it so much. I mean, if they're a regular listener, then they know what we're talking about. And if not, then
it's the Goth Club. It's the Goth Club.
It's the Goth Club, and Google it if you don't know it. Yes, and. Speaking of goth, I don't know if this is a proper transition, but yes, today's episode is all about the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, a show that I didn't remember at all. Did you ever watch it back in the day?
I thought I didn't, but sorry, I'm trying to fix this webcam here. But I thought I didn't, but then once I started watching it yesterday, it definitely came back to me. I didn't watch it regularly or anything, but I've definitely caught pieces of it here and there for sure. And I do have my Cauldron coffee mug here, very apropos, Steve.
He's gonna
and I apologize for the listeners if I sound congested. It's because I'm still a little congested, but by the end of this, I'll be fun-gested.
I think the audience will be as well.
Done-gested.
Yeah, you need to roll a 12-sided die to improve your health, buddy. Well, come on.
Yeah, obviously, Steve, you and I, with our Dungeons and Dragons related punnery here, are big Dungeons and Dragoners, obviously.
Sure the audience. Obviously not. But I am curious, though, as to your history with... not only Dungeons & Dragons like the game, but just, I guess, tabletop gaming in general, if there is a history.
I have never played Dungeons & Dragons. Now, it's not for lack of wanting to. At one point, I was dating this girl, and one of the first things we did was she was like, I want to hang out with you, but I've got like this Dungeons & Dragons thing that my friends and I have to do Saturday. And I really didn't know too much about it, and now I understand, you don't want to lose like where you're at in the story or whatever. But and they seemed to be having a great time, and it was very cool. I had a hard time following along, but it seemed really cool. But it also became very clear it is a time investment. And that's the only reason why I really haven't played.
Right. Oh, I thought you were going to tell me she was like, I want to play sexual Dungeons and Dragons, and then every time you like roll a certain number, you have to remove an article of clothing. Is that a thing, or did I just make it up?
You don't need the Dungeons and Dragons board.
You don't?
We'll talk offline. Yeah, we'll talk offline in my dungeon.
I remember that's what I kept referring to your home as when we had the live recording, or not live, but the IRL recordings back, a whole 2 years ago. Wow, I guess that's a good transition to mention that we're going to be coming up on episode 100 here. I don't know what we're going to do for it, but we'll talk about it. But it's going to be a big deal. It's going to be huge. It's going to be the biggest 100th episode in the history of podcasting. You wait.
I don't know what you're doing right now, but I hate it.
I'm imitating our President Trump. I mean, I know you're a big fan.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, just like you.
I'm just
want to put it out there. Steve is not a big fan. I'm going to help you out here.
Well, yeah, no, definitely not. But I am a fan of impressions, and yeah, I know my Trump needs some work. But anyway,
hey, it's okay. The real Trump does too. But that's it's like. Anyways, we should move on.
Yeah,
we've been alienating Christians the last few weeks, and I guess we're going to continue this week by diving into Dungeons and Dragons.
Hey, if you like Trump, more power to you. Just as long as you listen to us, that's all we care about.
As long as it's more power to you and not to him.
Right, for sure. I actually tried to, or I guess successfully played a campaign of Dungeons and Dragons. One summer, my friend's older brother, he acted as dungeon master and rounded up a few of my high school chums. And he sort of changed it a little bit. Instead of like your typical, barbarians and I guess fantasy creatures, for whatever reason, it was, I guess, Asian mythology. Like we were like ninjas and samurais and stuff. Yes, and it went well until like someone died, and then they got really, I mean, not an actual player, but a player in the game.
Oh, okay.
His character died, and emotions ran high, and then we never played again after that. And yeah, I mean,
oh my God,
yeah, I know, right? The amount of organization it takes to like get people together and like come up with the story and everything. I mean, I can't imagine in this day and age that people actually still do it.
Oh my God, it's bigger than ever,
right?
Man. Like Critical Role or Critical Hit is like one of the biggest like Twitch channels, and it's like a Dungeons and Dragons centered one. And I mean, I know several middle-aged people, older than me even, that play it pretty actively. These people don't have children, of course, but
right. I mean,
no, because I say that because of the time it takes, for to do it. But I really do want to play a game one day. I want it to not be more than 2 hours,
right?
Which doesn't seem like that's a thing. What wrestler do you think is a huge fan? They're not currently active, but they were. I'll give you some clues. They worked in WCW. They were a big get from the WWE, one of the first big wrestlers that came from WCW to WWE during the Attitude Era. And they have a very memorable theme song.
Oh man, gosh, this is hard.
But they're no longer in WWE.
Can I just I'll make one guess. Wait, it can't be him because I know motorcycles was his thing. Well, it's not Buff Bagwell.
The Undertaker. Buff Bagwell, that's the big
No,
get?
I was going to say Chuck Palumbo.
That's the big get.
I mean, not yet. I don't.
Let me
just
put it
tell me.
This guy was a world champion in WCW a couple times before he came to WWE during the height of the Attitude Era. He debuted during the main event of St. Valentine's Massacre in WWE.
Jeez, that's hard. The Canyon?
Steve,
Canyon.
What did I just
Canyon.
Canyon was a former WCW.
Just tell me, man. Just tell me. Just tell me.
Well, it's the big show.
Oh, I see. I don't.
Wow, that's rude. Hey, Big Show's he's an entertaining guy.
Yeah, probably more.
I think he's entertaining. I just think he's at times has been a victim of the book.
Right.
But he himself as a person, like, especially when he's doing commentary on like AEW Dark, he's very entertaining.
You watch AEW Dark?
Sometimes, like if I hear there's a good match,
right,
or whatever, something, or if somebody I know.
Well, jumping back to role playing games. So, I mean, I'd imagine, are you maybe more into video game RPGs? Have you maybe played more of those than actual tabletop?
I'm not a bit. I like the idea of a video game RPG. Yeah, but there are time sync too.
Oh,
man.
I mean, back in the day, did you at least play Final Fantasy 3 or maybe Lunar or any of those?
I played Final Fantasy 7. It was pretty good. Yeah. But I mean, I'm more of a like point and click adventure game guy. If we're gonna that would be the closest to like something like that. But in real life, you had asked about tabletop games. There's a Star Trek CCG game, customizable card game that I got into pretty heavily in my teens. And as recently as 2 years ago, I went on eBay and I bought a shit ton of cards for it and tried to get somebody to play it with me in IRL, and they could not follow along the rules. And frankly, I had trouble.
Did you guys remove an article of clothing whenever you lost? Was it?
No, I don't think we even finished the game. Unfortunately,
I'm just trying to make RPGs sexy. Is that so wrong?
I mean, RPGs can be sexy stuff. I feel like, is there like a sexy RPG story you want to tell?
I mean, if someone wanted to make a role-playing game of Escape to Earth, they're welcome to do it. I mean, as long as I get my
Sandy, if you're listening, Steve's wife, if you're listening, I think Steve's trying to send out some hints here as to what he wants for his birthday. Just a little sexy role play.
Thank God she doesn't listen anymore. I mean, not because she didn't enjoy listening to us, but because
she's just too.
She doesn't have a community. That was probably our one female fan, actually. If I'm wrong, let us know in the comments.
Steve, your sister was literally in the chat last week.
But no, she only listened because we were covering Salute Your Shorts. She's not like a regular listener. But hey, whatever. We'll take what we can get here. So, all right. I think we pretty much covered our history. I don't know. In the world of like do you consider yourself like a fantasy genre guy? Like, do you have some movies that you enjoyed or watched over the years?
I actually am not a fan of the fantasy genre. Anything set like in medieval-ish Renaissance times, other than the Renaissance Fair, I like going to that. But like movies and stuff, I mean, like The Witcher, I can't really get into because of the setting. Skyrim, I can't get into because of the setting. Now, I'll play Mass Effect, even though it's basically just Skyrim in space, so it's literally just the coat of paint. For whatever reason, I just have a hard time getting into that stuff.
So you don't like...
doesn't mean I haven't enjoyed some stuff in that genre, but...
So, I mean, you're not like into like the original Conan or Beastmaster, any like Dragon Slayer, those original like movies from the 80s?
I mean, I remember liking Conan the Barbarian as a kid, but I mean, I liked lots of stupid things as a kid. I haven't watched it since
Conan the Barbarian is a classic character, brah.
Hey, listen, I know that's one of your former governors there in California. I don't mean to step on your toes.
I wasn't living here during that time. I wish I was, but I wasn't. So, all right. I mean, I don't really care for too much of the fantasy genre that's coming out these days. Like, so you never watched Game of Thrones at all?
I tried to get into it. I watched like the first 5 or 6 episodes. And I don't know, it was one of those shows where like I could tell, like I didn't think it was bad. I could tell it was going to be good. But they introduced like a lot of characters at first. And it seems like not a lot is happening, but there's just a lot of world building going on. I was just like, I don't have time.
Yeah, I think that's basically what we're saying is that like role-playing games, at least for you and I, it's too much of a time suck to commit to as adults.
We're young and hip, Steve. We're the TikTok generation.
Well, I mean, we're on TikTok. I mean, I don't know if we're actually welcome to be there, but we're on it all right. And that's why TikTok, you got your, 10-second to 1-minute videos. You can't play an RPG in that time.
Hey, now you can do a 10-minute video.
Right. Yeah. And if
that seems like the worst idea for TikTok to do. Like, it's funny on YouTube. I'll watch like a video that's a couple hours long. If it's good. On TikTok, if a video is more than 2 minutes long, I'm like, no.
I'm with you. Yeah. And I meant to mention that.
So it's so funny how that works.
Back to people playing RPGs. I know a popular genre of podcast is called an actual play, where it's just audio of people playing RPGs, basically. And sometimes they add like sound design and, basically sort of turn it into... So
it's like a radio play, like an old school radio play, basically.
Basically, they throw it into the audio drama genre. And and I'm like, I think they kind of deserve their own sort of genre, but whatever. They can throw it in there if they want to.
I mean, it's very close to it.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't get any joy out of listening to people play a game. Now, I would like to play that game if I had the time, but as far as me listening as a spectator, that's just not going to happen.
I think that's probably one of those things where if you're like big into playing those kind of games, you can probably appreciate those kind of podcasts more because you can get ideas for your own stories to do or your own characters and your own play and see what other people are doing. So I bet it's one of those things where if you're into it on your own, you're going to be really into the podcast.
For sure. So let's go ahead and jump into the Dungeons & Dragons sort of IMDb here before we go to the Obscuritron. And we already talked about the cartoon a little bit. Like as you were saying, I think I vaguely remembered the opening and like nothing else, basically, as I was watching it. And
yeah, I definitely remembered that opening. It's memorable for all the wrong reasons.
So yeah, Dungeons and Dragons ran from 1983 to 1985. It's 3 seasons long, 27 episodes. It premiered September 17th, 1983, and ran to December 7th, 1985. And here's the synopsis of the entire show. A group of kids are thrown into a fantasy world where they must search for a way home, armed with magic weapons that an evil tyrant wants. And the episode that we are watching is the pilot episode called The Night of No Tomorrow. And here's the synopsis for that. The pupils seek out and find Merlin, and he'll teach the pupil Presto magic. If he stays with Merlin, Presto decides to stay and attempts a spell to create a way home. But the spell summons dragons instead, which attacks a nearby village. Spoiler alert, it totally ruined the episode, but whatever. So this was developed by writer-creator Mark Evanier, and his TV work is at least known. He's known for Pryor's Place, starring Richard Pryor. Have you ever heard of that show?
Heard of what show?
Pryor's Place with Richard Pryor?
I've never heard of that show.
Well, I know you know this one, Garfield and Friends, and he is actually the long-standing writer of one of my favorite indie comic books / indie characters of all time, Gru the Wanderer. Do you remember Gru at all?
I don't remember. We do have somebody here on the chat. Monty G said, 10-year-old me loved this series. 50-year-old me is also a fan, even though I know it's ... a little rough.
Yeah.
I would agree. It's a little rough.
Sure.
Rough around the edges.
And a lot of people worked behind the scenes on this, including director John Gibbs, who worked on Transformers, G.I. Joe, Muppet Babies, Defenders of the Earth, some TV movie called Solar Man, which might be worth checking out, and Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines. And for some reason, it took 2 directors for this episode. He was accompanied by Bob Richardson, who worked on the Ultimate Avengers 1 and 2 animated movies. Did you ever watch those movies?
I did not, but I have heard of them.
They're pretty good. It's a pre-Disney buyout Marvel, so make sure you check it out. And he also worked on the Fox Spider-Man animated series, as well as Pink Panther, Pink at First Sight. I know you're going to watch that later. And as I said, Mark Evanier is like the head writer, and he was accompanied by Kevin Paul Coates, who is credited as the creator. And he worked on Battle of the Planets. And also the co-creator is Dennis Marks. He worked on Batman the Animated Series, the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turbo Teen. Are you familiar with Turbo Teen?
I've heard of Turbo Teen. I've never watched it.
It's the boy that when he gets hot, he turns into like a Corvette.
Yeah, that's puberty, right?
Yes. And The Incredible Hulk and production companies are pretty well known here. A little company called Marvel Productions and D&D Entertainment. And it was animated by the Japanese company Toei. So you can either blame them or support them, however you want to look at it. So who are some of the... man, we've got like an all-star cast here. Tell me who they are.
Yeah, there's a lot of people here. I'm not going to go through everyone. First up, we have another appearance by Willie Ames. I can't believe
Bible Man
it.
himself.
So Willie Ames, we just covered Bible Man a couple episodes ago. And, or was it last? No, 2 episodes ago. Anyways, and we had talked about how he had like done something in Dungeons and Dragons. And for whatever reason, I forgot all about it until I looked this up. But yeah. He's known from Bible Man and a bunch of other things you don't care about.
Well, I mean, Charles in Charge, though, right? I mean, at least that.
Yeah, he was in Charles in Charge. Yeah, we've already covered him pretty extensively. I've talked more about Willie Ames in the last 6 weeks than I wanted to my entire life.
True.
So I'd like to
move on. Move on then. Yes.
Okay. Then we've got Adam Rich. He plays the voice of Presto. I really didn't recognize him from any of this other stuff, but it says that he was most known for Code Red and 8 is Enough, where he was in 112 episodes. I remember 8 is Enough existing. I never watched
same here. I think that one is a sitcom like before our time, basically.
Yeah. Then we have Katie Lee as the voice of Sheila the Thief. She actually is still working as a voice actress, has 136 credits to her name. It's, pretty much like animated work, nothing that super stands out to me. The thing she did the most of was 107 episodes of Muppet Babies.
All right.
But she's got stuff as recently as last year. So, yeah. Then we've got Sydney Miller, who plays the Dungeon Master. Sydney, it's really weird because, like, most of his stuff looks like it's for directing. Like, he's got 41 credits for directing and... Oh, wait, no, I should have done better research. He's got 153 for acting. He hasn't acted since 1997. I suspect he's not alive.
Probably not.
Died in 2004. So
there you go.
Then we've got Peter. Wait, do I want to cover Peter Cullen yet? Yes, we've got Peter Cullen. I think everybody knows him best from Transformers. Optimus Prime, of course, but he's done a million things that we don't have the time to get into, but I'm sure the audience knows who he is. And then the last two people I want to cover is Frank Welker, also of Transformers fame, Galvatron, Megatron, Shockwave, a bunch of other characters, and of course he's got tons and tons of other animated credits to his name. I don't want to...
Can I throw one in there? We already covered him as the dog from the Chipmunk Adventure, and it was funny when I was looking through the IMDb. I was like, "Whoa, we've got Peter Cullen, Optimus Prime, and Frank Megatron Welker here. I can't wait to see what badass Frank Welker is playing." And he's playing the stupid unicorn.
Yeah, real weird. And I know we talked about this last time we went over Frank Welker, but he's got like 4 or 5 Star Trek credits. One of them in Voyager, one of them in like Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, and some video games. So I don't want to use him because I feel like that'll be cheating.
Yeah, he's like we've run it for him once before.
Half the stuff we cover. But thankfully, we've got Don Most also on the cast.
He's the most Don you could possibly cast.
That's right. He plays the voice of Eric the Cavalier. He was in Happy Days, 167 episodes of that. But more importantly, Steve, he was in an episode of Star Trek Voyager as Caden. So we still get our Star Trek connection.
All right, and here it is.
Oh no! We've just entered another Star Trek connection.
I don't know how you do it. You always find a way.
I wonder what people the first time they tune in, they're like, "What the fuck is going on with these Star Trek?"
Right.
But yeah, and that's pretty much the cast of import. There's a few other people on the cast, but they're either not credited with what they did, there's just a lot of people.
I think the only person you might have missed is
Tanya.
Diana the Acrobat.
Yeah, Tanya Gale Smith. Yeah, she does Diana the Acrobat. Besides this, all she did was appear as an extra on an episode of The Facts of Life.
Wow. Well, we're not going to start doing Facts of Life connections anytime soon. And
I don't think so.
And how about Bobby the Barbarian? Did you mention him? Teddy Field III?
No, I didn't. On my list, he's not credited. So who is he?
He's Bobby the Barbarian, the little boy, basically, he's got the big club.
Oh, no, I mean the actor's name. Oh, yeah, he is right here. I'm sorry, he just doesn't have a picture. Well, similar to our last person, besides Dungeons and Dragons, he did 1 episode of Mr. T.
Nice.
And 13 episodes of something called Saturday Super Cave.
Oh, we know about that.
Yeah, isn't that like the thing
Kubert,
with
Kubert episode?
Cubert, yeah, we covered that.
All right. Well, sounds like we're ready to watch this thing. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. I'm going to count down. If you're watching along, feel free to hit
Oh, maybe we should put the link first in the chat.
Yeah. Do you have it handy?
In case somebody... I do.
Cool.
1 second here.
Yep. The most Don Most.
This is the very professional setup here. Okay, so I have put the link to episode 1 of Dungeons & Dragons on YouTube into the chat if you're watching along live, so you can click there as well.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. And 3, 2, 1, play. All right, there we go.
Dungeons & Dragons ride!
This is the most simple, sort of typical 80s premise to send someone into a fantasy realm.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, I love how they break their backs here, the way that they're sent into this vortex, their backs are back. They would have no vertebrae.
I think it might be a little loud. Whoops, there we go. I love how they just show up and automatically know-it-all dungeon master just knows exactly who they're supposed to be and, gives them their...
Right, and the kids all pretty much know how to use their powers.
Right, yeah, no need for character growth here in Dungeons & Dragons Episode 1. But
there's definitely a lot of telling and not so much showing.
Yeah, I mean, that's also kind of a trope, if you will, that it's we're just going to skip the origin story and go straight to the action.
I mean... By the way, I do like the title. The Night of No Tomorrow is a very cool sounding. It actually sounds like a title from an original series episode of Star Trek.
God, you and your Star Trek.
Those are the kind of titles they would do.
I know. It is a good title. Oh, man. So I'm going to go ahead and say I think for the most part, this show is pretty decent, but I feel Bobby the Barbarian and Uni the Unicorn are basically sort of the Scrappy Doo or Bandit and Johnny Quest of this show almost. But I don't want to compare him to Johnny Quest because, of course, you can't have Johnny Quest without Johnny Quest. But why is the Unicorn there is what I'm asking.
To sell toys, I guess. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. Maybe was My Little Pony already out? This came out in 1983. Maybe it's to kind of
it's to
piggyback off
to cutify it a little bit, I guess, so little kids could have something to go, for, I guess. But man,
what did they call the dragon? Tiamat Dragon?
Tiamat. And I have to say, I think Tiamat the Dragon is pretty badass looking.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this, and you should go watch it, because I'd say it's pretty well animated for the most part. They're in this sort of wasteland type area, and I guess they don't even say how they got there. They're just there. They're wandering around, try to find a way home, and this massive dragon shows. How many heads does she have? 6? 5 heads. And I just wonder if that's the name of the dragon in the Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master book, because I was reading that they actually used the they used those books as source material more or less.
Makes sense. Monty G in the chat wrote that I think he's referring to Bobby here, that they're the Wesley Crusher of the series.
I could see that. I mean, what do you think about the idea of making the youngest character the strongest, the barbarian, basically?
I mean, I guess if you're trying to appeal to little kids, that's appealing to them. If you're 6 or 8 or something, right?
So
instead of making one of the older kids.
Right. So the Dungeon Master just showed up. How would you describe the Dungeon Master?
Like a misshapen potato.
That's good. I put if Willow and Frodo had a sketchy, questionable uncle. He's so creepy and so such a know-it-all. So yeah, here's where, as you were saying, we get a lot of show here. And then we get a first shot of Avenger, who's the villain, voiced by Peter Cullen. And I will say, all the sort of little tidbits that they drop end up they're setups that end up paying off like by the end of the episode for the most part. So yeah, another thing that I don't really like about the Dungeon Master is that he's kind of like the Watcher from the Marvel Universe. Maybe even worse so in the way that he sort of foretells what's going to happen to our crew here. And it's like, if you already know what's going to happen, like, why don't you do something to help them? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the rules are for Dungeons and Dragons. I know a Dungeon Master is not supposed to help. So, I mean, I guess the Dungeon Master in this show is pretty accurate as to how he's, how they are, you know, in the books.
Trade.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I just hate that he's, I don't know if you heard me or not, how he just. Oh, you did? Well, what do you think about the Dungeon Master as sort of a literary device here in the show?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. By the way, Monty G in the chat said that he would describe the Dungeon Master as a high AF.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of the character. I think it would have been more interesting, like, if they just like appeared here already dressed up rather than some random DM giving them their powers. But I don't know. At the same time, like, you know, ultimately they're trying to get, you know, kids into Dungeons and Dragons, right? And the Dungeon Master is a big part of that. So I guess you have to have a Dungeon Master. I just would have maybe introduced it a different way.
Yeah. So, all right, we already saw Tiamat, and then we just saw Presto, which is the lamest name for a magician ever. He brought a cow out of his magical hat. That cow is going to come into play later in this show. So, I mean, I really think that Mark Evanier here, he cares. He actually put some thought, at least, into the plot of the episode.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I have some issues with the plot that I'll.
Well, I look forward to hearing them.
Later.
But yeah, thank the Dungeon Master. They left Uni. Oh wait, no. This is the part where they leave Uni behind. What do you think about?
I wish we had footage of Frank Welker like in the studio doing these unicorn.
God, those noises. How? What do they sound like to you? What is a Uni?
They're like. Terrible.
Yeah. It sounds like someone who's mentally ill.
It sounds like you know when you let the air out of a balloon and you like squeeze the tip of it to make it.
It does. It does
like
sound like that. So I don't know. What do you think about the animation of this show?
It's okay. I mean, it's from 1983, so I mean, it's pretty decent in most cases for 1983. There's a couple things here and there that I'm not crazy about, but I think you're pretty fond of it, though, right?
I mean, I think it is pretty good for 1983. I mean, it was better than I expected, but I think it
yeah.
I think it's been up-resed, and is it freaking freezing again? Jeez. All right, there we go.
Freezing on my end.
Thank God. Okay. What do you think of this Merlin?
It's fine, generic, but you know, I guess this is the classic Merlin, right? And I don't know how he's depicted, or if he's even depicted in Dungeons and Dragons artwork. Maybe this is how he's looked. I mean,
right. The first.
So this villain has only one horn on his left side of his head.
Yeah, that was a weird touch, I'd say.
But I'm sure people that are like fans of Dungeons and Dragons could better explain it to us, like why.
Yeah. I wonder
if that's like a real thing,
right?
Or normal.
Avenger is that is a dash Venger, if that's like an actual thing in the Dungeons of and Dragons like world. But
so basically, the whole thing is like they want to get home. You know, this Merlin is like, I think he says like he can't help them or something.
Right. And then they did that weird. The first time I saw it, because I watched this like a couple of times, when he started talking about his hair and was showing that he's bald and stuff. I actually like didn't see how it fit in until later.
But later, yeah. I guess it's supposed to be because he's not Merlin.
Yeah, basically the dungeon master speaks in riddles, and I hate those kinds of characters.
But it's like spoiler alert, Merlin is really Venger.
Mm-hmm.
He's made himself look like this. He's like a changeling, right? He can morph.
Right.
Well, why wouldn't he just like morph white hair? Why would he like make a hat with a wig on it? That seems like more work.
Yeah, it's pretty random. And also his whole plan sort of gauges on kind of like happenstance, basically. I mean, he could be, and by he I mean Venger, he could be waiting in this like castle for years until the Dungeons and Dragons team just sort of happens along, and then presto, accidentally reads the. I mean, we're already giving away the plot because we haven't gotten there yet, but in this,
I mean, I guess the idea is that. Yeah, this doesn't make any sense because it's like, well, did Venger is he responsible for bringing these people from Earth to the Dungeons and Dragons realm? But if that's the case, why was the Dungeon Master ready to give them like roles? Like, who brought them here? And again, maybe it's covered in other. I wish that guy Monty G was back. He would
come back, Monty, please. Yeah, I mean, he's after these guys because he wants their like special. Like artifacts or something that each of them possess, and we should say that Tiamat from the beginning of the episode, the dragon, came back for more to go after the D&D crew here, and again it seems like, man, is that all they've got? But there's a reason why he's there that pays off at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Hey, Monty G is back. He said, but I can't guarantee I'll remember anything.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, like so Monty G, do you know like who is responsible for bringing these kids into the Dungeons and Dragons realm? Is that ever explained in the series?
It's the Dungeons and Dragons company. They're the reason.
TSR
yeah, that's
or whatever.
It's not TSR anymore. I know there's like a big controversy,
like Wizards of the West Coast.
Yeah, that's what it's called now. And from what I know, it's basically Hasbro owns them, and they're like changing everything. And I guess the old school D&D fans, they're not really into that.
Yeah, I know there was a big uproar a few months ago, and I guess like Hasbro or Wizards of the West Coast like reverted some policies or pretended to clarify some policies and be like, no, that's not what we meant.
Right. The really creepy part, we missed it. It's a little bit back, is where Merlin is like, "Ooh, I'm looking for a new apprentice, and I want to teach you, Presto. You just have to stay here for the rest of your life." And it's like, ooh.
Yeah, and Presto stays behind, agrees to stay with him, because Presto thinks, okay, I'll stay behind and I'll learn like why. A spell
to send everybody back. Yeah. Home. So I mean, he cares about his friends. I mean, there's definitely a lot of teamwork here with the D&D crew, and I feel like they do a decent job of finding something for everyone to do. At least, I mean, people just aren't like standing around.
Everyone except for Eric, the one that's always complaining.
Right.
So Monty G said that. He thinks it might have been covered in the final episode. So wrote, if I recall, Venger is, spoiler alert, the Dungeon Master's son.
I wonder if he's referring to, like in my research, I discovered that the actual finale of this cartoon was never actually completed. But you could, at one point, you could go onto a D&D site and like listen to it in audio drama form, like they wrote it.
Yeah, Monty G mentioned that like some people had like put together a version of it with, I guess, a script or what have you.
Isn't the internet wonderful?
Well,
yeah. Oh, here we go. Here's the big reveal. Oh, it wasn't Merlin at all.
I do like the transition from Merlin to Venger.
How?
I love how Presto's reaction to Venger, to Merlin turning into this demonic looking thing. He goes, "Oh no!" Like he's in Troll 2.
Yeah. Well, I love just how much like Optimus Prime Venger sounds like.
Yeah, he sounds just like
I feel like they almost put the same effect on him and everything.
Yeah, very similar. I shouldn't say just
right.
like, pretty damn similar.
Now here, basically the D&D crew have left Presto behind, and they're hanging out in some sort of hobbit village. And listen to this fortune teller. It's so obvious that it is a man pretending to be a woman.
Yeah.
Like,
I still don't know why we were sent here, Mayor, but at least we got to meet Merlin.
And the fortune was really weird. She's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna be rich. You're gonna be." She's basically trying to take them for a ride. I feel like she's like,
"What? You mean fortune tellers aren't real, Yahel? Is that what you're trying to say?"
I'm afraid to break it to you, Steve.
How will I continue? Yeah. So these dragons that basically what happened is Venger, pretending to be Merlin, tricked Presto into using his good magic to unleash these bad dragons. And these dragons are not nearly as detailed as Tiamat. They're just sort of pretty generic dragons.
And the whole deal is that like Merlin had a long time ago, I think like 1,000 years ago, gotten the dragons to go away by using his good magic, a special spell, and only somebody that uses good magic could undo the spell. And obviously Venger doesn't know how to use the good magic because he's such a bad boy.
He's the bad boy of the D&D world here. I love how
these dragons are like setting the village on fire. So is Presto responsible for their deaths, I guess?
Yeah, I guess he is. But don't worry, he's going to learn a valuable lesson. It's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because at the end they're like, "Oh, the village thinks that you're a hero." Oh, really?
Well, it's like, well, you did a great job, fixing your own mistakes, so you're a hero.
Yeah, it's like, to use an analogy I think I've used before on the podcast, it's like a thief breaking into your house, stealing all your shit, and you being thankful because a week later he gives you back like your TV or something, but keeps everything else.
I also forgot.
You're supposed to be grateful? No.
Hey, as long as you learn a valuable lesson, that's all that matters. But I forgot to mention, back when they first are going up to Merlin's magical floating castle, I love how the way they get there is by magic ladder. I mean, it's like it's a ladder from Home Depot, basically. Like, what's...
Yeah, basically.
Like they could...
And at first I was like, "Oh, that's so like convenient that this ladder falls down." But it does actually make sense in the story because it's Venger, trying to get them up.
Right,
there.
but I mean, why isn't it like a floating rock or just...
Why doesn't he use his magic
telekinesis?
To get him up there?
Yeah.
Why are the clouds solid when they're up there?
Oh, it's the same...
If he wants them to get into the castle, why didn't he have the bridge, the drawbridge?
I think the same people who constructed Venger's floating castle, they also made Camelot in the Care Bears movie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I see. Monty G said, I think this is in reference to Presto being responsible for the genocide of the village, but his heart grew several sizes that day, though.
I like this guy. You got to drop by more often, Monty.
Boy, Presto has two giant buck teeth, huh? That is a unfortunate dental situation that he doesn't seem to have the magic to fix.
If you were to get swept into this world, like if you went on that D&D ride, which one of these sort of avatars do you think you would be, or characters?
Is Venger an option? He seems cool.
We could go with that.
Because otherwise, I guess you'd want to be Presto, right? Because he can do like pretty much anything. Even though he's got maybe the lamest outfit.
Oh yeah, super lame. I don't know.
But all these outfits are.
I'd probably be Eric the Cavalier, just making snide remarks the whole time, not really, helping out the team in any way.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to think, like, how am I going to get laid while...
I'm sure in the adult version, Eric is probably, busy, getting everyone in trouble. It's like, oh, she told me she loved me.
He's the Job of the group, to use an Arrested Development reference.
Yeah, actually, he kind of looks like Job.
Monty G wrote that he would be the roller coaster car.
Okay.
So you're taking kids into away from their families and parents and into this world. Hey, Stadium Arts is here. Thanks for joining
Welcome
Strike.
back. True Obscurian, if there ever was one. All right, so I guess we should pay attention to the cartoon.
Yeah, we haven't even been discussing this. So basically now, that 5-headed dragon from earlier broke into Merlin's castle. They managed to like trap him and get away from him, and that gave Presto a chance to undo the spell.
The ladder's disappearing.
That's not all.
And now, like, he's, telling everybody, I'm sorry about undoing the spell. I was just trying to get everybody home.
Isn't it funny that one of the magical, sort of avatars or powers is the acrobat? It's like she could have been just a regular gymnast on Earth, but she had to come to a fantasy world to get, magical gymnast powers, more or less.
Well, I assume, though, like, she's quite a bit better than a regular gymnast would be, I would presume.
Well, I know a place where they think you're as good as Merlin himself.
I mean, she like does like at one point like make her baton fly down a hallway, and turns out like every.
She reminds me of
one fell swoop.
Chitara from the Wildcats or Wildcats, Thundercats. Getting my cats mixed up over here.
Yeah. So anyway, now the gang is trying to convince Presto to go back to the village with them because he's a hero.
Because he fixed his own mistake. Now they bring the cow back from before.
Yeah. There aren't enough horses for everybody to have their own, so Presto conjures up the same cow from earlier for Eric to ride.
And this is a funny line. See if we missed it. Hold on.
When he says, "I don't ride anything that gives milk."
What is that?
I guess he doesn't ride milk-producing creatures, Steven.
All right. Yeah.
Take that.
That's such a random line. But I mean, it wasn't a whole lot to make fun of here, but definitely some stuff. I don't know. Should we?
Did you notice that this is like made by Toei?
Yeah, I mentioned that at the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I was busy, Steve, maybe looking through my map.
Yeah, you were busy thinking about Star Trek. That's what you were doing. Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Finding out ways to make sexy Star Trek RPG games.
In the chat, Monty G is right. He said he's as innocent as the kids, and no one ever thinks about what happened to the car. It's true. We don't see what happens to the car. I hope the car gets an episode.
Oh, it's going to get its own series at some
down.
point. Well, I know what I can mention some of the sort of trivia here. Like, so it was like I guess this was like syndicated, and it was number one in its time slot for many years to come. It says they had 100 different licenses, so this was a pretty popular show when it was out, and I think that's so interesting, considering that everyone was demonizing, and that is the proper pun. Dungeons and Dragons back in the 80s, because supposedly it was a path to Satan.
Yeah, there were a lot of Satanic Panic style movies made about it. Tom Hanks stars in one. We should probably cover it. Like, there's a made-for-TV movie that he did before he was a big star. And yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, that sounds fun. And also, of course, just like with all of the sort of action cartoons of the 80s, there was they considered a lot of the violence very controversial. Like, you think about like what we just watched, and like meanwhile in Japan, like schoolgirls are getting ripped apart by like tentacle monsters and stuff. Like, it's just It's just hilarious. So yeah, the National Coalition on Television Violence demanded that the FTC run a warning during each broadcast stating that Dungeons and Dragons had been linked to real-life violent deaths, which of course is not true at all. It's pure propaganda.
Yeah, of course, as usual. This is very like reminds you of the right to censor in the WWE Attitude Era.
Now we're back there again. So the big man.
But yeah, that pretty much covers Dungeons and Dragons. Steve, do you want to render a verdict, or do you have any more factoids?
No, surprisingly, there wasn't that much about it. Just that it was really popular, and of course, people complained about the very minimal violence. So yeah, let's.
And as we know, everybody associated with it is in hell now, including
well,
Williams.
he at least divorced his wife / computer, and that's because he participated in this. You think it was Dungeons and Dragons that drove him to be Bible Man?
Maybe. I wish Stadium Arts Stry had been here earlier. Willie Ames does one of the voices of the characters, and Willie Ames was Bible Man himself.
There you go.
That we covered a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, obviously this is before he turned his life to pretending to be a man of the cloth.
And obviously before he decided to be a 5-star cruise director, which is, the most heavenly thing you can do, besides being a priest, of course.
I believe he said 6-star. Yep, I'm looking at his... At his IMDb profile, he says that he became a 6-star.
I didn't even know that was possible. He was so good.
Well, when you're Willie Ames, Steve, you go 1 star beyond.
All right. Here we go. That's the question. All right, Dungeon Master Yahel. Do you think that the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon should be remembered for all of human history, or tossed into the black void of obscurity, never to be heard from again?
Well, at first, before we started doing the watch through, I was going to say no, because I really didn't enjoy it. And part of the reason why I didn't enjoy it at first is because, at first, it kind of doesn't make sense, all the Merlin stuff. And, why isn't Merlin directing them, which way to go out of the castle? But then it's okay, it's not really Merlin. But then when you think about it, that doesn't really make any sense either, because it's like you said, it's very convenient that Venture, just happened to, be waiting at the right time for these people to show up. But I'm also not the biggest Dungeons and Dragons fan. Or I shouldn't say I'm not a fan, I just never really played it. But after watching with you, you pointed out enough positives. I'm gonna say keep it.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad I was able to sway you, because I aside from Uni, I wasn't really annoyed by anything. I liked the animation and thought it had a brisk enough pace and better than average writing for a cartoon of the time. Thanks.
I feel the writing was pretty.
Really? I thought
to sometimes annoying. These characters, actually, that was one of the things I hated, is that the characters, especially in the first act, nobody shuts the fuck up for a second. There's no space between when one character stops talking and the next one starts. It's
the
crazy.
Voice acting is a bit weird, because a lot of I don't know if it was just maybe a lack of technology at the time, or they didn't bother to remaster the audio, because they sound very bland and a lot like each other.
It sounds like everybody recorded their audio separately too, and then it was edited together. They don't really sound like they're having conversations with each other.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But I still enjoyed the episode as a whole. I doubt it's gonna make me want to watch any more. and I was already a big fan of Mark Evanier, so that might have made me a little biased. But yeah, I definitely think it deserves to be saved. It's definitely no Bruno the Kid or anything like that, and it's definitely no Biker Mice from Mars. So I would say slightly better than average, and because of that, it will be remembered.
In accordance to Obscurity Now, the most important streaming YouTube podcast in all of the internet, you shall be remembered. Yes. Good show. Good show.
All right.
Well, there is, we should mention a new Dungeons and Dragons movie coming out, called Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. And I only bring it up because it is starring 2009's Captain Kirk Chris Pine.
He's a bland enough actor to take the place of one Willie Ames, I'd say.
I would say he's somebody that, like, if he's really into the part, he's really good. But if he's not into it, you can tell.
I never understood why, like, he was the it or has been the it guy for so long. Like, I
wouldn't say he's an it guy.
He's in everything. He's always the lead.
I was just gonna say he's never the lead in anything. Like in Wonder Woman, he's a supporting actor.
Oh yeah, I guess
he's the lead in. He's the lead in Dungeons and Dragons, but like, what other movie besides Star Trek 2009 was he really like a lead in?
I mean, there's a lot of other forgettable stuff. So forgettable that I can't recall them right now. But
there's a zombie movie he did that was really good before.
Really?
Star Trek. That he's the lead in. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that might be a
surprisingly good one.
Be worth checking out at some point. But tell us what you think about Dungeons and Dragons, the cartoon, either in the comments or, I don't know, let us know on Twitter. And anything else to add, Yahel, before we sign off?
No, we will not be live next week, unfortunately.
Or the week after.
Or the week, well, it's iffy. We'll see. We may end up, probably won't be live. Mm. I know we're going to record the episode in case, because I said I probably won't be around. But sounds morbid.
Get ready. You're going to die? Oh, no. Or just get sucked into a fantasy world.
Yeah, we'll see. But we'll be covering next week the world's most unlikable superhero, the irredeemable Ant-Man. That is the name of the comic book. And I really think, even though it won't be live, you guys should check it out, because I have a feeling Steve and I may come to blows while covering.
Oh, wow. I'm interested. I wish I could watch. Alrighty. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Obscurity Now. Make sure you come back next Sunday as we unearth even more obscure media only on Obscurity Now. See you next week.
You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.